Beautiful. Thank you, B.A. I love your energy, man. Just really appreciate it. And your spirit that comes through. Well, so this mother goes in to wake up her child on Sunday morning and says, come on, you got to get up, you got to go to church. And the child says, I don't want to go to church. Well, so you got to go, it's Sunday morning, this is what we do, and you need to go. And he says, no, I don't want to go. And so they go back and forth a couple of times. Finally, the son says, give me one good reason why I should go to church this morning. The mother says, well, I'll give you two good reasons. One, you're 35 years old. And two, you're the minister of the church. So this morning, I struggled to get here. I was thinking about that joke. I had one of those nights where I just tossed around, I've been so focused on awakening, that's been my focus, right? So I can't sleep anymore, I guess. I got to slow down on this awakening journey. It's keeping me awake at night. But anyway, I'm here. I may be a little dull, we'll find out, but I'm here. And this topic today, I don't think there's a more important topic perhaps to address, and not just however it might be individually for us, but collectively as humanity. If there's one thing that underlies, I think, all of our conflict, whether it's interpersonal between individuals or between nations, it's this notion that there's some sense of not enough, right? Not enough. And we go to squabbles over it, and we go to war over that. And so there's a very compelling reason for us to work through this, and we come by it honestly. All of us, grew up. We didn't have Mary and Joseph as our parents, or as some people say, and so we got messages that. Not just that there wasn't enough, we may have gotten that message or we may not have, but there's some version of we were not enough, that just the way we are is missing something, lacking something in some way. And so that idea that we're not complete or that we're not enough or that there's something missing in us being the message that many of us got, then we carry that into our life, into our world. And when we look out at the world, we don't see the world as it is. We see it what? We see it as we are. There is no objective reality out there. There is the perception of reality which we bring to it, and oftentimes it is colored by our beliefs. And one of the beliefs that is the biggest one for us is that there's not enough, or that I'm not enough. Anyone know this one? Just us. Just the people in this room, that's all. And I've certainly had my journey with this throughout my life, and I think I've shared with you that I grew up in a family where my parents had gone through the really tough economic times, and so their message to us kids was, get a good education, get a good job, and then make a lot of money. Don't be poor. And they sort of carry that not enoughness. And so again, we came by it honestly. But the truth is, and that's what we're here to remember, that there is enough. And the reason that there is enough is because we are not just these body minds with limited resources in a finite reality called life on earth. The truth is that is something that we come to, but who and what we truly are is what? We are spiritual beings, and we live in a spiritual universe, and it operates under spiritual laws. And one of those laws is what we hold to be true then reflects in our life, yes? So if I'm holding the view that there isn't enough, then I'm going to find all kinds of evidence of that until I change my beliefs or I change my thoughts and I begin to see through that story of not enough. And that's really what this whole idea of spiritual awakening is. It's about not identifying ourselves with the limited form that we are, the body-mind that we are, but to identify ourselves as we truly are, which is these infinite beings in which we are connected with the unlimited abundance of the universe. Yeah? Aren't we down for that? Yeah. Yeah, so it's really, there is an awakening process that is involved in this, and it's to work against the messages that we get from the world, from watching the news is the worst way to enhance your consciousness of enough, because the news is this one prayer request after another of not enough, right? And yes, it's good to be informed, but if we allow that news of not enough to deepen our own sense of not enough, then news really, it begins to contract our sense of who we are, and what we need to do is what? Expand. We need to grow into the truth of who we are, and the way we do that is how we are being with what we are having. And for the longest time, when I would think about abundance and scarcity, I thought, well, that's just about how much you have. And then I realized, no, it's not how much you have that determines your abundance. It's how you are with what you have that determines your abundance. And that's this whole notion that, you know, what I bring to my life circumstances determines my experience of it. And I can have, and you know, whether in your own life or in other people's, people who have very little, but their attitude about what they have is a feeling of abundance, a feeling of gratefulness, a feeling of that they are blessed by what they have. And so that is the notion of how are you being with what you're having that determines whether you experience abundance or scarcity in our lives. And I've gone through periods in my life where I've had very little, and I have felt more abundant than in times when I had much more, but I was back into that seeking mind, and the seeking mind, the surface mind, never has enough. It's like the little Pac-Man, you know, that it keeps eating, but it never gets satisfied. And if that is the way we're oriented, it doesn't matter how much you have in your life. Whatever you have will not be enough. And I remember times when I had very little and it didn't feel like enough. And then I finally got the amount of money or resources that I thought would be enough. And it was momentarily. And then shortly thereafter, I increased what was necessary for me to feel enough. And that never really ends. That never really ends. So if we think that abundance is finally getting some particular quantity, whether it's money or love or approval or whatever it might be that we're feeling we don't have enough of, if that is our way of determining, we are going to always be seeking but never ever really arriving, never really getting there. Does anyone relate to this? Yeah, that's just the way it is in terms of that part of us, because that part of us is built on the notion of separation. We don't feel connected to the universe. We don't feel connected to the infinite supply that we say is the invisible supply. And because we don't feel connected to that, we are subject to always feeling there's something missing, there's something not right. And, you know, we have Jesus saying, for those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. And for those who have not, even that which they have will be taken from them. Well, it sounds pretty like a cruel statement that Jesus was talking about, but he wasn't talking about stuff. He wasn't talking about those who have a bunch of stuff will get more, like the rich will get richer. That wasn't what he was talking about. What was he talking about if those who have what? Consciousness. Yeah, consciousness. That big C word that it's all about how you are being, what you believe to be true. If you are connected with this infinite supply, you have that, then more will be given to you because your orientation is, your expectation is that there's plenty. And if your expectation is that there's plenty, if that's what I'm holding and knowing, then I will see evidence unto my belief. Is that not true? I mean, it's just the law. We can't really even argue with it. We can not like it, because when we get things in our life that are not what we're really wanting, we don't want to feel like we have anything to do with it. We want to blame the world or the government or politics. But so often, if we're really willing to be curious and not self-deprecating about being honest with ourselves and knowing, what am I holding on to here? What am I believing in this situation? In other words, how am I being with what I'm having? Not just what I'm having, but how am I being with it? And what I would say is the easiest way to turn around a sense of scarcity is to bless everything that you have in your life. And this has worked really well. Denise and I have gone through, as being ministers, we have had our up times and our down times. We've been employed, we've been unemployed. We were even homeless for a couple of weeks of our life about 20 years ago. And during the time when we were homeless, we were practicing so assiduously these principles. It's like necessity, is the mother of rolling up your sleeves and doing the work, And I remember when some little breakthrough would happen, like we would get a little gift from somebody, or a check would come in the mail, or, someone would give us, some apples or something, and we would just be filled with gratitude. And it was so powerful, because it just seemed like the more we blessed and the more grateful we were, the more we were walking around with a sense of abundance. This is what opened us up to more abundance in our life. And we've been through times in our life when we were both making professional salaries and we were making a lot of money, and I wasn't grateful at all, It was sort of like that cycle of looking for what's next and what's missing. Well, this is good. Well, then we could have more of this. That would be even better. We have a bigger house and a better view and blah, 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 right? So how you're being with what you're having is what determines the experience that we have of abundance. Jesus has another statement that I really love. He said, you say 4 more months and then comes the harvest. And I say that the fields are already ripe. Again, we tend to think that the circumstances of our life are what determine our sense of abundance. And Jesus says, open your eyes to the spiritual reality, not your physical eyes, because your physical eyes are trained to look at material things and determine quantities based on what you see. But our spiritual eyes will give us a sense of our wholeness, a sense of our fulfillment that's here within us. And it's from that place then that when we then look out upon the world, that it affects what we see. It affects how we bless what we have and whether we feel grateful for what we have. So this isn't rocket science. It's not particularly sophisticated. But it is a principle that I think is underutilized by most of us, those of us who struggle sometimes with not enough. It really isn't about wanting any more sincerely. I don't know, we've all been taught, we should set goals and we should really have this fervent desire and so forth. I don't believe that that's really a very effective way of changing your finances or your sense of abundance, because wanting is a message that you don't have. Wanting, and this is why the Buddhists, I think, that say that desire is not such a good thing, is because if you're desiring and you're wanting, the message is, I don't have it, or I don't have enough. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get into the consciousness of truth, which says, I have enough, there is enough, I am enough, I am enough. And you are enough because you were God-made. How can there be any more enough than being God-made? You are a chip off the old block. You're an extension of this infinite presence and power and love that we call God. If there is only one presence and one power, in the universe and in your life, and not just in your life, because that sounds like two things, but as your life. There's one presence, one power as your life, expressing through this form that you sometimes mistakenly think is you, when in truth, the you is the infinite that's expressing through this body form. It's temporarily a cloaking device, as they would say in Star Trek, for who and what you truly are. It's the carrier or the delivery system of the spirit at the point of spirit at the point of your body mind. But that's one day it's going to wear out, Even if we live a long life, at some point this body mind is not going to be here anymore. Then who are you without a body mind? Well, you are what you've always been. And so what has blessed you all along has been those moments when you knew yourself as you truly were, not when you were identified with a finite mind in a finite body, in a body that wears out. And, as Jesus said, don't make your treasures, what's the quote? Don't store up treasures on earth where rust and moth and everything can take those things away, but store up treasures in heaven. And we know that to be within us, the consciousness of our connection and the reality of our being in spirit. Yes? So let's see, what else do I have here? I brought like 4 pages of notes, which is very scary for me because I usually don't have hardly any at all. But I was feeling like there wasn't enough, which is perfect. And I felt like I wasn't enough because I hadn't slept. So I thought, I'm telling Denise all this morning. She goes, well, you were just so prepared for this talk because, there's nothing better than an authentic experience of scarcity when you're talking about letting go of scarcity. So here we are, keeping it real with you. I did come across this story that many of you are familiar with, the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And it's really a lesson in how to let go of scarcity. The story, of course, is whether we don't know whether it's true or not, but we know there is truth in it, and that is that Jesus is in front of a whole bunch of people with some of his disciples, and it's like suddenly everyone decides, hey, it's lunchtime, and it's like an unannounced potluck with 5,000 of the congregation joining you, and like, what have we got? It's like, we need 5,000 salads, but what do we have? And the reality is, okay, let's look at what we have. And so that's being aware of your resources and saying, okay, well, we've got a couple of fish and we've got 5 loaves. Not looking good from the material paradigm of whether we have enough or not. But Jesus is not locked into the material paradigm. Jesus is connected with the infinite, yes, as we all are, but Jesus seems to have a better lock on it than most of us do. And so there's like 3 things that he does. The first one is, do you know what it is? He looks up. He looks up. So what does that mean? So that means looking above the appearances. It's not staring at, the human thing would be, oh my God, 2 fish and 5 loaves, we don't have enough. And we would just be, grinding out this suffering that comes with focusing on what's missing, broken, or not right about the situation. Yeah, we get that. But he says, no, look up. So looking up is to look at what's the truth of this situation. I mean, he first did take an inventory, so it's not about denying the appearances of life, but it isn't about ending there and making a conclusion based upon the apparent limitation, yeah? So looking up is to look above the appearances of life, above the material paradigm, and look to the truth. And the truth is there is a legitimate royal abundance for every creature. That's the truth. So Jesus is looking into that understanding, and he gives thanks. He gives thanks. Now, he doesn't give thanks that there's going to be 5,000 salads that are going to show up, that Subway is going to come in and provide food for everybody. He doesn't have magical thinking going on. But he doesn't have to work out the details because he's in the paradigm of enough. He's in the paradigm of there's plenty. And he's not doing it in the material sense, but he's doing it that the universe is abundant. That every situation there is an answer. There is a resource that is available to be what the situation demands. Yes? In fact, there's a Bible quote that's, I think it's, I will be what tomorrow demands, or I will be what today demands. That's this notion that whatever situation is confronting us, no matter what it looks like, there is a spiritual reality that will meet the apparent need. And that's what Jesus is doing in this situation. He's looking up and he's seeing and he's giving thanks for what they have. So that's the blessing part. So he gives thanks for what you have, and he affirms that there is enough and says, you've always provided. So in other words, he's affirming the truth that there's always an answer, and there's always a provision given. And then he offers what he has. So the final act in this moving out of scarcity is to bless it, and to give what you can. And it's in giving what you can that allows you to reverse the sense of scarcity. Because when you're feeling not enough, your human thought is not about giving, is it? But if you're feeling abundant, wouldn't you be more generous? Yes? So it isn't about giving away your last, crumb of bread or something like that. But it is like, what can I give to this situation? Besides the blessing of what you have can always be, there's some way that I want to share. And the most abundant moments many of us have in our life is when we have been the most generous. Do we know this? When we have given. And when we have given, we are sending a message to our consciousness, to what we believe to be true, that there is enough. And by affirming this connection that I have with you or my fellow human beings, then I go into that the milieu of this infinite connection in which there is enough, in which we are sort of feeding each other in this consciousness of plenty and enough. So by summary, I guess you would say, just looking at that story, whatever might be your sense of scarcity in life, and it doesn't just have to be around money, obviously, because when we feel that we are not enough, when we feel that there's something missing in us, that consciousness, that experience of not enough can color our world in all areas of our life, yes? In which can affect our relationships, it can affect our finances, our employment, and what we need out of life. So, following this teaching that Jesus is saying, he's got this other statement when he's talking about praying. He says, when you pray that you have received. Pray believing that you have received and it will be yours. In other words, it's not about some future event. It's about that you have already received. And what you've already received, of course, is that you've been made in the image and likeness of these infinite resources. And so to know that you've already received is the attitude that then, when we know that to be the case, then that is what our life tends to reflect, yes? So the more we affirm the truth that may be belied by the appearances of life, the more that becomes the lens through which we see life, no matter what the appearance might be. And it begins to give us more evidence unto our faith. Yes? I mean, faith is not believing something that's not true in order to make it true. Faith is believing what is true and that flies in the face of what we falsely believe, yes? So that's the kind of faith we're talking about. It's a knowing faith. It's a faith that comes from the deep part of us that knows that we are connected with love and life and truth and peace and wholeness. That part of us is underutilized. It remains usually under the radar of our ordinary awareness. And this spiritual work that you and I do every day is to work against the tendency to think there is not enough by calling forth, however you call forth the truth, whether it's in prayer or affirmation, or whether it's in getting silent or getting deeply quiet and really feeling into the heart of hearts. And to know that this consciousness that you have, this consciousness of your pure being, not your being as a man or a woman or as a this or a that, but just the life that you know that you have within you when you are quiet, that you are aware that you are, that the awareness that you are, stripped of all of the external identifications and labels, is who and what you truly are. This is the spiritual being that was not born and will not die. And when we're in that consciousness of that, then we do have a sense that all is well, that there is enough, that whatever I need will be provided. And as we begin to know that increasingly, that becomes the lens through which we look upon the world of appearances. And then the appearances of life begin to reflect the knowingness of the truth. That's how transformation happens. That's how we bring heaven to earth. Yes?